If I call him at 11 o'clock at night, he's going to pick up the phone thinking there's an emergency, when in reality, I'm curious about what he thought of the swing I sent him today.
The story I tell him once in a while is I think he was 3 and he had a little U.S. Kids 7-iron, and I watched him on the practice area at Hudson National, closing the face, hitting some little bump and run shots, and then opening it up to hit some lofted shots without anybody ever telling him that that's how you needed to do that. He sort of instinctively knew how to make the ball do what he wanted to.
So, Cam, you grew up basically on the course at Sleepy Hollow with your dad being your coach, and he was the pro there. Mm-hmm. What was that like as a kid? Take me through like a typical day on the course growing up.
Yeah, we moved there we moved on property when I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
So for me, it was, when I got home from school, we were right there. And pretty much every day I'd get out there as fast as I could. We lived right down on the short course at Sleepy. There's a kind of an executive 9 holes. And I would go home, grab my clubs and walk out there, either, to go play some holes or to go out to the range. And it's incredible looking back to think, how convenient it was for me to just run out there and go hit some balls.
And when you look back, how do you think that shaped the golfer who you are today?
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, that was a time in my life where I really built my kind of interest in the game. With that much access, I feel like I was bound to get better during that time period. And I think that is kind of, what drove me to move forward with it. I saw improvement and realized that if I kept working at it, I might be able to make something of it. So, it was just a time where I got to go out and, enjoy golf and try to get a little better. And I think that's, what I try to do now.
David, let's switch to you. Can you remember the moment when it stopped being father and son hitting golf balls and you said he really has the chance to do something special with this talent?
I don't know if we ever thought about it that way. He was always pretty well self-motivated, so we never really pushed golf. We sort of made it available to him. I think it was more, there's a point, like he said, when he realized he had, maybe a future in the game and put his mind maybe to that a little bit ahead of baseball or hockey, some of the other things he enjoyed. We were pretty close to it, so I knew he was talented. I knew he was, by the time he was 14, he was beating most of the club pros in the area, including me. So we knew that, if he chose to chase that dream, that he had a pretty good shot. But we never really, ever flipped the switch and said, hey, let's go for this. It was kind of, let's one step at a time, junior golf, amateur golf, college golf. And as long as he kept enjoying it, kept getting better and had a passion for it, we just did everything we could to make that opportunity happen for him.
When you look back, was there anything different about Cam and his talent or his drive that was different than the other juniors or even adults that you coached?
Yeah, he always had a really good sense for the game. The story I tell him once in a while is I think he was 3 and he had a little U.S. Kids 7-iron, and I watched him on the practice area at Hudson National, closing the face, hitting some little bump and run shots, and then opening it up to hit some lofted shots without anybody ever telling him that that's how you needed to do that. He sort of instinctively knew how to make the ball do what he wanted to, by manipulating the face and things that other little kids didn't do. So, there was evident early on that he had an understanding for how to make the ball go where he wanted it to go, and a little different than most other kids.
He had natural talent.
Yeah, there was something there that was a little different. Something
special for sure. We know that you have enormous talent, but I want to talk a little bit about grit. Mm-hmm. When did you shift from chasing college golf to feeling like, hey, I can do this, I can make a career out of this? I
think the way that I always describe it is there wasn't a moment really. I took the opportunity to get into a good school using my golf. And then throughout college at Wake Forest, it was mainly just a battle of, trying to balance all the things that comes with that. Where, we miss a lot of school. Our hours are pretty well accounted for with, practice and workouts and schoolwork. And I really just did my best to get through all of that and try to improve my golf at the same time. And then from college, you really start pretty well, on the bottom floor, unless you're one of the very few that's elite in college and you kind of get some starts out of it or some amount of status, which is kind of new. That's after my time a little bit, but yeah, you kind of start on the ground floor, and at that time it's more, if I play well today, where do I get to? And that just keeps kind of piling up, and eventually you have a chance to get to the Korn Ferry Tour or the PGA Tour. And really it wasn't something that I ever said, surely I'm going to get out there and do well. It was kind of, the opportunity at hand. And I think that turns out to have been a good approach, because the way that I did end up getting to the PGA Tour was in a kind of roundabout, strange way. And I'm very thankful for it. It probably saved me a year or two, playing on a level below the PGA Tour. But it was much more, kind of day by day discovery of what could come next, and much less, I'm going to put my head down and get on the PGA Tour. It was, I'm going to put my head down and try to play a good round today. And I think over the long run, that's played out well.
I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that you weren't the star when you first got to Wake Forest. Tell me about that.
No, so we had a good team while I was there. We had a few older guys that were pretty good when I first started. Okay. And then the class ahead of me was Will Zalatoris, who's a well-known name, fantastic player. And then another really good player from Ireland, Paul McBride. And, so we had a bunch of guys. I think I played number 4 or 3 a lot. The first 3 years while Will and Paul were there, they were kind of our 1-2 for a long time. So it was, I had a nice college career, but it wasn't anything special, I don't think.
Look at you now, right?
Yeah, still working on it.
Yeah. A lot of players bounce around between coaches. You have kept it in the family for the majority of your career. Why has this relationship worked so well for both of you?
For me, it's been relatively easy. Obviously, as my father, I have kind of unparalleled access to my coach, in a sense. If I call him at 11 o'clock at night, he's going to pick up the phone thinking there's an emergency, when in reality, I'm curious about what he thought of the swing I sent him today. So that's part of it that's worked out really well. And then I think we think similarly. So the communication has always been pretty easy. I generally understand kind of the point that he's trying to make about something, and kind of, that goes both ways. If I'm feeling something, he has seen me hit enough golf balls to understand, how that affects my ability to make shots on the golf course. And obviously he's been watching me since I was 3, like you said. And so just to have someone that has that history of watching you hit golf balls and kind of leading me through all levels of the game, you're going to build up some just really easy communication, and that's been really helpful.
I think, like Cam said, we think a lot alike. We have a very similar approach to how we think about the golf swing, and he understands the swing so well. But I think what makes it work is he's just a fantastic student. I tell people, I can't be that good an instructor. I've only ever had one student make it to the Ryder Cup team. So it's more to do with the student than it is the teacher. But he's easy to work with. I mean, he's talented to where if we decide we want to make a change, he's very good at making those changes and adapting to it very quickly. He's real good about communicating if he doesn't like it, if we try something.
Really good at that.
That feels terrible. No. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Then a year later, he's like, what? It works. No.
Yeah, it's all right.
We get some of that, but it's the communication's easy. There's never really been any friction over it. It's just always been that way.
I think we're both pretty matter-of-fact people. Mm-hmm. So very rarely are there any feelings involved in trying to accomplish something golf-wise. I mean, it's just, hey, I'm hitting it left, and that's kind of the end of the story. I'm hitting it left. So there's, that's where we go in and try to fix that. So I don't think that there's ever been really much tension, just because we both kind of have that personality trait. We try as best we can to kind of just say what it is and deal with the issue.
You both seem to have a very even-keeled personality, but I think every golf family has a blow-up story. Was there a time on the course where you had a huge argument, you didn't agree? I'd love to hear it.
I can't think of a huge argument. I think, if anything, we've both I think I inherited some of the anger, maybe, kind of inwardly. We both get frustrated with our golf, and I've certainly exhibited that on occasion. And I've seen him exhibit it once or twice in my formative years.
The anger's generally at ourselves, not each other.
Sure.
Yeah, it's always we're mad at ourselves, not necessarily each other. So I think I broke an umbrella once watching him play because I was mad that I didn't tell him something ahead of time, but
Yeah.
that I should have. But anyway, and I remember traveling around Orlando one night trying to find a shaft for him after one didn't make it through a round.
Yeah.
But very little of that, but always at ourselves, never at each other, really.
Yeah.
You have to be so proud of him.
Of course, yeah. It's been, cliche, but dreams come true. I mean, literally, our dreams have come true for him a lot of times. On the family side and on the golf side, things that we've been very, very fortunate, and we do realize it.
It's so special that you guys get to be together and
Yeah.
be on tour with him and have your father alongside of you.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think you traveled probably 22 or 3 out of 25 weeks last year.
Yeah.
And my family comes all the time. So, he's dad, grandfather, coach, plays a lot of roles kind of every day on the road, really. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I hope for you too, but for us just to have some more family on the road. And it's easy when we get home, we have our job, he's out there helping me with that. And then we get home and there's my kids and my wife and, my mom gets to come out on occasion. And so it's just fun to have kind of that whole group be on the road.
You have young kids, 3 young kids.
Yes,
How do
ma'am.
you balance that? And how often are your wife and kids with you on tour? And,
Yeah.
and how often are you away from them?
Yeah. This last year, my family traveled almost every week. They missed only a couple.
great.
It's the
So
one you won, they missed.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness, you're
So
kidding.
So we still have to have
Yeah.
kids running out on the green.
yeah, yeah.
That's coming.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be great. I would love that.
But they're with you most of the time.
But yeah, they're with me most of the time. I mean, my wife is incredible. She manages the children, so I can kind of take my mind off that and focus on the golf. And it's getting easier and more fun as they get a little bit older. My oldest is 4, but they're just old enough that they can enjoy the traveling and seeing a new place. And they get excited when say we're going to a new hotel, house, whatever it is. They don't care. They're happy that we're there. And it's been a lot of fun traveling with them. Honestly, the first couple of years they didn't come out that much, and this last year was great having them out on the road. It makes my job more of a 9 to 5. I mean,
Right.
the hours are strange. Sometimes I leave the house at 4. Sometimes I get back late, but we work 10-hour days. But I get to come home and I can put my kids to bed, and it's been a vast improvement over having to say goodbye for a month at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome. The pause at the top of your swing has really become a signature for you. I want the backstory. How did that come about?
Yeah, I don't know is the answer. I think it developed slowly in college, maybe, but I don't really know. I just kind of woke up one day and it was a lot more pronounced than it used to be. And I've tried to get rid of it a couple times, and that doesn't work, so it just is what it is.
David, be honest, if he wasn't your son, would you try to coach somebody else out of that?
The book says probably.
Yeah, we might try it. We do a lot of that. We say, hey, technically this might look better, might technically be more consistent. We try it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I probably would experiment with somebody if they were, had long-term goals, and if it didn't work, relatively quickly, better than what they were doing, we'd probably go back and let them keep it. We did get rid of it a little bit.
Yeah, we tried. Yeah.
Because it got pretty pronounced there for a year or so in college. But it works.
Leading up to your big win, you had 7 runner-up finishes. You were called
Yeah.
the best player
Yeah.
without a win. How did you mentally push through that and stay in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took some amount of time. That first year, it started to get frustrating. The second part or first part of that second year, it's kind of still ate at me, and just as time went on, something I actually said, I think in the interview after I won was I started playing a little bit worse, and I just have become more thankful for the times that I'm around the lead and playing well. And I think that's made a big difference, just because I feel like now more so than years past, I'm able to finish 8th, even if I had a chance to win. And I might be disappointed that I didn't win, but I can recognize that 8th is okay. It's not what you wanted, but it's still a good week, and there's things to build on. So I think that has helped me just mentally kind of get through that. And the second half of this year, I played some great golf, so it's nice to see that form return, and then also with a slight adjustment in attitude, just able to enjoy the good golf a little bit more.
Take me back to one of those runner-ups when you walk off 18 and it slips away. What's the next hour like between the two of you when the cameras aren't around?
I usually I pack my locker a little bit aggressively. I would say there's a huge mix because sometimes second feels amazing and sometimes it feels bad. So there's totally different feelings that can go through. I mean, I remember my first one, Sanderson Farms. I was hugely disappointed, and my agent called and said, "You have no idea what you've just done for yourself. Smile, go back to your locker, and get out of there." I was like, "Okay, fair enough." I'd pretty much kept my tour card for the first year with one finish early in the fall, and so I remember that one. Like I was obviously upset because I wanted to win, and I lost by one, and I felt like I had a real chance. But at the same time, I understood that it was overall a great thing that I would have signed up for, at the start of the week or the start of the year or whenever. So that one I remember. And then there were a couple that were a little more disappointing. British Open, St. Andrews, I would say is more kind of like my first, second at Sanderson Farms. I made a putt at the last. I couldn't have played any better. And then a couple of them really felt like they got away. I felt like I let the PGA Championship in 22 get away from me a little bit. And it's not necessarily true, but it just felt that way at the time. And there's been a few more like that. But yeah, it's different. Some of them are different than others, and it's easy to walk away from some of them saying, okay, I played great this week and this is a good thing. Some of them you walk away and you're like, man, I really feel like I should have won.
David, when he got so close, how did you motivate him? How did you tell him just keep pushing through and you can do this?
I think he always knew that. I think, like you said, the first hour or two after you don't win and you come that close, I think is really disappointing, a little frustrating. You get some things that you are mad about, but I think as you wake up the next morning and get back about your business, you realize he played awfully well. I think, I forget the number, but you're like sub 68 stroke average in all those Sunday rounds where you finished second.
Yeah.
So in none of those cases really did he play poorly. It's just somebody else played better. So we build on those things, and it gave him confidence to know that, hey, I can win. I play well on Sundays when I'm in the hunt, and one of these days I'm going to come out on top. So it's not hard. I think I usually let him be for a couple hours after the round. Smart. Anyway. Let him cool down a little bit and start to get rational again, and then we go back to work.
This is making me seem like a crazy person. I don't get that angry. It's just a bit of frustration.
No, but if there's ever a time it's a little tough to talk to you, that's what it is.
Yeah, you're known for giving him that pause before you start instructing him again. The Wyndham win, what was that like for you? I know that Cameron got really emotional, and I imagine that had to be emotional for you too.
It was. We're so happy for him to see all that hard work and perseverance pay off, and a really convincing win. And it was really nice for me because it was that Sunday was pretty easy to watch. I think he had about a 9-shot lead at the turn, so the back nine was it was a little stress as I felt watching him play golf in a long time, really, as he's getting his first win.
Yeah.
And he was playing beautifully, so it was just fun to watch. That was really one of the more enjoyable rounds of golf to watch. And at the end, really, just so happy for him and his family to have that win. Just a little bit unreal at the moment, even though it sort of unfolded slowly. He knew it was going to happen. Still just a little bit of, we're right to the airport on the plane, and the playoff started the next week, so we're right back to work the next morning. So not a lot of time for celebration or reflection. But I think it was actually the next morning we woke up and I gave him a hug in the kitchen. Really, that's when I got emotional, really, for the first time.
Yeah.
I really hadn't had a chance to really congratulate him or really relish the moment until the next morning.
I don't think we really even talked about it until then.
No, because we were busy on the plane on the way down, and you had all kinds of responsibilities before we took off, and so it really was that next morning before we actually said, hey, you did
nice job, yeah.
Is that when it sank in for you too, that in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like you said. I mean, it did sink in because I understood it, but it was not, my focus was not about that win anymore. It was really halfway through that round, I would have loved to have been present in the moment and tried to win by 12, but I just wasn't. My head was in Memphis and on getting to East Lake and getting to the Ryder Cup team. So it was a relief, in the sense that I had opened up the door to some of those opportunities, because I wasn't in a great spot for either of those things. But really, it didn't take, nothing really set in until Sunday night of Eastlake for me.
Okay.
I went out to dinner with my wife's, which we do maybe about 6 times a year. I'd say every 2 months we go out to dinner without the children. And we kind of just looked around, we're like, season's over. The last month I couldn't have done anything else. And, just to put to rest the season and know that, I'm going to get a call probably tomorrow, and we're going to know whether or not I've made the Ryder Cup team. The season's over. I finished 4th in the FedEx Cup. I'm exempt for a couple of years. I'm in all the majors. It really didn't set in until then, I would say, because when you're playing 4 weeks in a row like that, I don't think people realize how busy it is. Kind of like my dad said, it's, we won the tournament at Wyndham and ran to the hotel, packed up, get on the plane, go to Memphis, got there at midnight, check in the house. My family's coming in the next day, and we went out to practice probably at 8 o'clock in the morning.
But at least you had to celebrate on that date night.
Yeah, exactly. So it really didn't, not that it didn't set in until after Eastlake, but I really didn't take a second to appreciate it and recognize where we were until then.
Because it was really just step one of that process that you really embarked on.
Yeah.
So you didn't really feel like the job was done. You feel like it was really just starting.
Yeah.
So we were right back to work and sort of had that mindset of, let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Cam, fans often notice the MLB logo on your
Yeah.
shirt. How did that partnership come about?
Yeah, it's through a personal relationship with Mr. Manfred. He's been the commissioner of baseball for a number of years, and he was a member at Sleepy Hollow for a long time. So my father and, he and his wife were close friends of the family. And when I first turned pro, they took us out to dinner, and Rob kind of leaned over at the end of dinner and said, "Hey, would you wear the logo?" And I, of course, jumped at the opportunity because, one, it's a pretty cool logo, and 2, I had no money at all, so I was
no status, no money.
No money. So it sounded like a good offer to me. If you offered me 50
yes.
bucks, I was in. So just very, really, from their perspective, I think I was kind of a charity case at the time. I had no real value to add to them, but now I think this is coming up on our 7th year, and they've been there since the beginning. So it's a cool partner to have, and they've been great to me, and I'm happy to add whatever value I can for them. They don't need me, I don't think, but I'm really happy to have been with them for a long time.
And you played baseball as a kid. Why do you
Yes.
think it's important for young golfers who are watching to be a multi-sport athlete? Why is that important?
I mean, for me, I think it just teaches you to use your body in a number of different ways. You can build strength, kind of going all different directions. I played ice hockey, I played baseball. So I was always, a decent athlete, but I feel like playing other sports just makes you familiar with moving your body all sorts of different ways, gives you opportunity to build strength in other ways. And when it came down to choosing golf over those two, I loved both of them, but it was just, I was much better at golf, and that turned out to be a good choice.
And what age was that when you decided to specialize?
It was about 15.
Okay.
I played baseball right through 8th grade and played hockey maybe one more year. So
What's your best tip for young golfers, teenage golfers who want to take their game to the next level?
yeah, I mean, I think teenagers playing golf, it's all speed development. If you can learn to sequence your body properly, that's just a time period where you're going to build so much strength, so much size, and it's really a time you need to take advantage of. Because now, I mean, I'm not old, but I'm 28, and things don't come as easily as they did at 17. So I'm still probably on the better side of it, but I do look back and realize that I probably missed some opportunity in that time of my life to build some strength and build up more speed than I have today.
Coach, any advice for the young golfers out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, playing other sports is a great one. Baseball, hockey, I mean, some of the sequence of motion, even though the swings are, slap shot, the baseball swing, the golf swing, they're all a little bit different, but there's a lot of similarities as well. So, developing an athlete first, and then maybe, focusing on where you have the passion, where you have the talent. But don't forgo the other stuff, thinking that you can't play baseball and golf well. If you're not good enough to do both or talented enough to do both, you're probably not going to go anywhere in either one anyway. But so I think, yeah, develop the athlete first, learn to hit the ball hard in golf, and then develop the finer motor skills and refine your game.
Yeah, I mean, during that time, your body changes so much that you're going to lose some of the touch and feel through that age. And it's just such an opportunity to build strength and build speed. You can find the other stuff later on.
There's so much pressure on youth sports right now, and parents are driving a lot of that pressure. Any advice for parents who want their child to go to the next level? I mean, because you were the perfect example. What advice do you have for parents whose kids want to take it to the next level?
I keep it fun, keep it, make it fun for them so they want to do it. I mean, especially golf. Golf is a hard game, and it comes with its frustrations. And if it's not really, if there's not some self-motivation there, putting pressure on to practice or to go play, is going to drive kids away rather than towards the game. So I think, keeping it fun, making sure there's opportunities, making sure they have what they need, but without the pressure to do more than they want. Some kids want to play tournaments all the time. Some kids would rather practice. Let them do what they want to do. There's plenty of time for both, and there's no, like Cam said, there's no clear-cut path where you do this, and this. So it's sort of, good decisions one at a time, and just providing, the atmosphere and opportunity that the kids are going to enjoy and flourish in.
Okay, so Kim, let's talk finances. Who taught you about money growing up?
The man on my right, I think frugal would probably be the right word. You were a big saver.
I like to think sensible.
Sensible, yeah, whatever you want to call it. But generally just on a very conservative side of spending money. And, I've always been that way for the most part, and my wife is very much that way. So we really see eye to eye on that, and I think it's made, honestly, a lot of things easy for us where, there are expenses that come with the job and having children and traveling all over the place, but outside of that, I feel like it stuck with me from a young age that it's hard work to make what you have, and there's no reason to spend it frivolously.
Are you a spender or a saver?
Definitely a saver. I don't spend much money on myself. I'm happy to spend it on my children or my wife, but I don't spend a ton on myself. No.
And your wife's a saver too?
She is, yes.
That is so rare, because normally
yes.
normally one person of the couple is a saver and the other is a spender. But you're both savers. How'd that work out?
Yeah, well, it's worked out well, I think. And the first, obviously, I got out on the PGA Tour and started making a much better living than before. And it's really only been recently that I've been asking her for now a couple of years, like, if there's something that makes your life easier, we can do it. And she's just now starting to be more comfortable with that. So it's been a battle, I think, in a nice way. I mean, I'd much rather that than obviously the other, trying to rein it in. So that's been a blessing for our general financial life.
When you do splurge, what do you splurge on?
Mostly food. We try to buy, higher quality things. From meat, everything that we can. So we try to get what we're feeding the children, what we're feeding ourselves to be the best quality that we can. And on the road, sometimes that turns into some very expensive grocery trips, but it's one thing that we really value, and that's probably where we go above and beyond what would be your average spending.
Now that you've had financial success on the tour, how has your relationship with money changed?
I would say it hasn't that much. I mean, I've been very lucky. My father had a great job. I always found myself around nice places. I lived at Sleepy Hollow, which is a beautiful country club, for a number of years, and so I've been very lucky not to have ever been on the wrong side of, really needing something and not being able to have it. I don't think I probably was spoiled a bit, just since I was an only child, and he loved watching me play sports, so I was always treated to good equipment, things like that. But I was also always aware that my father worked very hard to buy this baseball bat for me, so I always had that relationship with it. And it's something now, like, if my kids are wasting their food or something, that's something I go back to is, I worked very hard to put that on your plate, and, it's disrespectful to put it on the floor.
Waste not, want not, right?
Yes, correct. That's a good one. And it hasn't worked at all, but,
but
they are young, so I'm working on it.
They're still very young. Let's talk a little bit about the kids, because we know that you do have 3 young kids. What does financial security look like for you now as a parent, and what do you want for them long term?
Yeah, it's, for us personally, it's just been a battle of how much can we save. We don't want to take for granted the position we're in now. I'm healthy, earning a good living, and I think to assume that will last forever is naive. There's going to be down years. There could be injury. I might have to stop playing altogether. You never know. I could get in a car accident today and never play again. So we've kind of kept in mind that could happen at any point, and we need to take advantage of what's in front of us now, which is making some good money and saving it. So for me, I don't know if there's a number that will make me comfortable. What makes me comfortable financially is saving what we can, not spending anything unreasonable, and just feeling like I'm taking advantage of the situation that we're in now.
Why is it so important for you to lean on trusted advisors when it comes to your finances, as opposed to trying to figure it all out on your own?
Yeah, it is, because I have my, my inclinations, my kind of risk aversion in a sense, and I know kind of what I want, but I don't know enough to execute all of the different pieces. So I've leaned on a number of people that have helped me through it, and I feel like we have a good plan in place, and it kind of tailors toward how I feel about things, and it's like I said, we're just trying to find a way to maximize the situation I'm in now, and without taking too much risk.
But I see a lot of parallels. You saw the value of advice from your father very early on, and now you know that you got to have advice and got to get the experts, so to speak, for your finances too. And I think that's important for everybody to realize. Yeah.
It's a very complex space. There's a lot of options for how you can go about things, and that's kind of, I'm still in the process of learning. I've been out of college for 6 years. I've had a real job for 5 of those probably, and I'm still constantly learning about things. I get on the phone with people that help me, and I figure out things that they're doing for me that I didn't know, don't understand, but I really enjoy learning about it. So I think something that's important to be educated about, especially when it comes to your own finances, to understand what things are, how it's going to impact your portfolio, all your taxes, all that kind of thing. And so I'm still learning, but I'm hoping by the time that I get a little older, I'll kind of have more of it figured out than I do now.
Best financial decision you've ever made?
I think saving early. Our spending the first year or 2 that I was on the PGA Tour was ridiculously low. We saved every dollar that we could. We didn't buy anything that we didn't need. We really, spent nothing that we didn't have to. So, to a point that it might have been detrimental to performance, just because I was always conscious of saving every dollar that we had. And kind of with the same theory that I do now. I was in a good place, making some money, and wanted to keep it.
The decision that Kelsey forced you into to spend like your last $3,000 to go to the final Corn Ferry qualifier when you didn't want to go.
Yeah, that was a good financial decision. That was a good one.
Did you not want to spend the money?
I don't know if it was necessarily about the money. I just felt like my chances were really low, but I did just about. I maybe had enough to play for another month. Just playing mini tour golf and Monday qualifiers. It costs minimum $1,500 to go play a Monday qualifier, and I didn't have much more than that. So I was kind of down to my last dollar, and she convinced me to go, and Monday qualified, and that was the start of it. So.
Listening to your wife paid off.
That was a good investment, yeah.
That was the best money you ever spent right there.
Yeah, just about right.
Great investment. So we talked about the best financial decision. Worst financial decision you've ever made?
I'm struggling to come up with a really bad one.
Okay,
I think I've been fortunate.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm struggling to come up with a bad one, honestly. I think we've been very, very smart how we've gone about things, and it's nice now, 4 or 5 years in, starting to see the fruits of that as things start to grow. And we've been very fortunate. We've had good people around us, and my wife is very much like-minded with me, and it's been a really good recipe for making good decisions. I think, largely we've done really everything we could, and now, are in a position to spend the money to have, my family travel with me or whatever it is, and it's starting to get into some of those nicer lifestyle things that I feel like we can do now, and I think it's all a result of a bunch of really good decisions early on.
You have access to the best coaching, the best data out there, and Empower is giving individuals and families access to advice and guidance so that they can have similar confidence in their finances. What's it like for you to partner with a brand that's focused on helping people achieve financial freedom? Yeah,
it's something that is so important on a cultural, nationwide level. Just because it's a way that you can get trapped, is if you make poor decisions. There's a lot of things, kind of just the way the system works, that it's just so easy to fall into those traps. And if you get behind, it's very hard to get back ahead. So I think especially what I would say early on is having access to some expertise to make some good decisions early is so crucial, just so you get ahead, and you never want to know what it's like to be behind.
Why did this partnership with Empower feel right to you at this point in your career?
Yeah, I mean, they're a great partner. They're a great brand and have had some great ambassadors, so it's a team I'm happy to be a part of.
Love that. Dad, when you hear him say that you instilled that savings mindset in him, what's that like for you?
It's gratifying. He's been very, very responsible with his money, to say the least. We had to talk him in. He finally bought himself a used M3 that he'd been wanting for a long time, which he feels bad about spending money on himself, but we were all glad to see him do it. But he's been as conservative a saver and investor as you're going to find at his age, and it just makes a lot of sense. And I think having that good team of advisors around him, gives him the peace of mind to go out and do what he does without having to worry about what the financial future is for him. So I think, what little bit of that I could pass along. My dad was pretty good about that. My mom and dad were both school teachers, and, they saved really well and had a nice retirement and provided for my sister and I. And, we, got Cam off to college, in pretty good shape. So he's doing great now, so I can go ahead and spend my money. So we're all set.